Imagine you wake up in the middle of a desert with no civilization for hundreds of miles, realizing your survival is now a race against a giant clock in the sky. The heat hits you like a physical wall, a heavy atmospheric weight that makes every breath feel like you are inhaling from a hair dryer on its highest setting. You look at the horizon and see nothing but shimmering waves of heat, a beautiful but deadly landscape where the margin for error is exactly zero. Most people think they have days to figure it out, but in 120-degree heat, your life is actually measured in a terrifyingly narrow window of hours. Welcome to the reality of the rule of threes, being rewritten by the sun. While you can last weeks without food, your water window is slamming shut. In this simulation, we are going to track every biological breakdown of your body to see exactly how long you can last before the desert reclaims you. Your body is essentially a thermal machine that must stay at 98.6 degrees, and the desert is a massive heat sink trying to pull your temperature upward. To fight back, your brain's thermostat, the hypothalamus, triggers a cooling operation that relies entirely on the water currently sitting in your blood. The sun is a thief, and your sweat is the currency it steals. You can lose up to 2 liters of fluid every single hour you spend in the sun. Because the air is so dry, your sweat evaporates instantly, leaving you feeling deceptively dry while your internal fluid levels are actually plummeting. By the end of the first hour, you have lost 1% of your body weight in water, and the first thirst signal is already screaming in your brain. At this stage, your cognitive functions are still sharp, but your body is starting to slow down non-essential digestion to prioritize your core organs. By hour 3, you hit the 3% dehydration mark, and the physical reality of the desert manifests as a thick, pasty sensation in your mouth. Your blood is getting thicker now, moving through your veins like heavy oil in a cold engine, forcing your heart to pump harder just to move oxygen. This increased heart rate generates even more internal body heat, creating a deadly feedback loop that drains your water reserves even faster. If you decide to start walking toward that distant horizon now, you are essentially burning through your life's fuel at triple the normal survival rate. Experts call this the Goldilocks zone of survival. You feel strong enough to move, but every step is a withdrawal from a bank that isn't taking deposits. It is during this window that many people make the fatal mistake of rationing their water, taking tiny sips while their internal temperature climbs. The biological truth is that water in your stomach is far more useful than water in a bottle because it keeps your blood thin and your mind clear. As you cross into hour 5, you reach 5% dehydration, and the clinical phase of heat exhaustion begins with a staggering loss of coordination. A persistent, throbbing headache starts to settle in as your brain cells begin to shrink, shedding water to maintain the volume of your bloodstream. You might feel nauseous or dizzy, and the vastness of the sand starts to feel claustrophobic as tunnel vision begins to blur the edges of your world. This is biological triage. Your body is sacrificing your extremities and your logic to keep your heart and lungs from seizing up in the heat. Your skin might feel cool or clammy despite the blistering air, a sign that your peripheral circulation is failing as blood is shunted toward your core. You may hear a strange ringing in your ears, which is the sound of your own blood pressure rising as your heart struggles against the resistance of sludge. By hour 7, the psychological mirages move from the horizon into your actual thoughts, as the heat begins to warp your perception of reality. A mirage isn't just a hallucination, it is light refracting through heat, but your dehydrated brain projects its deepest desires onto those shimmers. You might see a lake or a road with such clarity that you find yourself running toward it, wasting the final, precious drops of energy you have left. This delirium is caused by electrolyte imbalances. As you lose salt through sweat, the electrical signals in your brain become erratic and noisy. You may experience micro-sleeps, where you lose track of time, or find yourself talking to people who aren't there as your consciousness dissolves. Paradoxical undressing might occur here. Your brain's thermoregulation fails, making you feel like you're burning up even as you enter a state of shock. At this point, you are no longer a rational actor, you are a biological system in a state of catastrophic failure, wandering aimlessly through the dunes. Once you reach 12% dehydration, you enter the final, most violent stage of survival, heat stroke, where your cooling system breaks down. In a desperate attempt to save your core, your body stops sweating entirely to preserve fluid, causing your skin to become red and bone dry. This is the dead man walking phase. Without evaporation, your internal temperature can rocket to 106 degrees Fahrenheit in just a few minutes. At these temperatures, the proteins in your brain and organs begin to denature, much like an egg white turning solid and white in a hot frying pan. Your kidneys are the first major organ to fail, unable to filter the toxins in your thickened blood, leading to a total systemic backup of waste. Your liver follows shortly after, and the lining of your gut can become permeable, allowing bacteria to leak into your bloodstream and cause sepsis. Conscious thought is replaced by a deep, heavy stupor, and you collapse into the sand, unable to lift your head as your muscles seize in cramps. From the moment you stop sweating, you have perhaps 60 minutes of life left before your heart rhythm becomes too erratic to sustain blood flow. Total survival time for an active person in 110-degree heat without water is rarely more than 14 hours. It is a brutal, uncompromising timeline. However, you can defy this math if you understand the physics of your environment and choose to fight the sun with stillness rather than motion. If you find or create a shaded, microclimate, and remain absolutely motionless, you can extend your survival time from hours to multiple days. The goal is to lower your metabolic heat to the lowest possible level. Every movement generates heat that must be mitigated by your water supply. Digging a trench just a few inches deep can expose soil that is up to 30 degrees cooler than the surface, providing a natural heat sink for you. By laying in this trench and covering yourself with extra clothing, you create a barrier that reflects radiation while trapping a pocket of cooler air. In this state of suspended animation, your respiratory rate slows and your water loss is minimized to just what is lost through breathing. Survival becomes a game of patience, waiting for the sun to lose its bite so you can reclaim the environment during the hospitable hours of night. Indigenous peoples of the desert have survived for millennia by becoming creatures of the shadows and respecting the hierarchy of the sun. Never hack into a saguaro cactus looking for a drink. The liquid inside is a toxic, alkaline soup designed to stop animals from eating the plant. Drinking cactus fluid will induce violent vomiting and cramping, which will purge your remaining hydration and accelerate your death by hours. The only exception is the fishhook barrel cactus, but even then, the liquid is bitter and can cause a massive drop in blood pressure if you're empty. Trying to find water by digging in dry riverbeds is an exhausting task that often yields nothing but hot sand and a dangerously high heart rate. Unless you see clear indicators like green, broad-leafed trees, digging is a high-risk gamble that usually costs more water than it produces for you. A more effective strategy is to watch for birds like doves and pigeons, which fly toward water sources at dawn and dusk, acting as a natural compass. If you don't know where water is with 100% certainty, your best bet is to stay put and signal for help rather than wandering off. It seems counterintuitive, but one of the most important things you can do to stay alive is to keep every single layer of clothing on your body. Exposed skin absorbs radiant heat much faster than covered skin, and it also allows your sweat to evaporate too quickly to provide efficient cooling. Loose-fitting, light-colored clothing creates a buffer zone of air that acts as a natural insulator against the external fire of the desert. This fabric traps a layer of moisture against your skin, creating a high-humidity environment that actually slows down your overall dehydration rate. Covering your head and neck is non-negotiable to protect the brain's thermostat from direct radiation that triggers the onset of heat stroke. Protect your eyes as well. The intense UV glare reflecting off the sand can cause sand blindness, a painful inflammation that leaves you sightless. If you have a vehicle, do not strip the interior for clothes. Use the materials to create an external awning to provide a double layer of shade. When the sun finally dips below the horizon, the desert undergoes a violent transformation that brings a completely new threat: hypothermia. Because there is no moisture in the air to hold the heat, temperatures can plummet from 120 degrees to 40 degrees in just a few hours' time. Your sweat-soaked clothes now become ice-cold wraps that pull heat away from your body, causing you to shiver and burn even more precious fluid. This is the night shift, the only time it is safe to travel toward a destination or gather materials for a signal fire to attract rescuers. Use the stars to maintain a straight line of travel, as the lack of landmarks in the dark makes it nearly impossible to avoid walking in circles. Be aware that the desert wakes up at night. Scorpions and rattlesnakes are nocturnal hunters that you must avoid while you navigate the rocks. The desert's greatest weapon is the psychological wall of indifference it builds around you, where the vast landscape provides no sensory anchors. You might feel an overwhelming urge to simply lie down and sleep, a sensation that feels like a warm blanket but is actually a dehydration coma. Fighting this lethargy requires immense mental discipline and setting small, achievable goals to keep your executive brain functions from quitting. Talk to yourself out loud, count your steps, and focus on the task of signaling to ensure your mind stays engaged with the reality of survival. The answer to how long you can last is a sliding scale: 14 hours if you hike in the sun, or up to 72 hours if you stay still in the shade. Respect the sun, protect your core, and remember that the smartest thing you can do in the dunes is often to do absolutely nothing at all.